Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
And finally, as you all saw yesterday, a federal judge denied the Associated Press's emergency motion for a temporary restraining order against myself, our Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich, and our Chief of Staff Susie Wiles for our decision to remove the Associated Press from the White House press pool for certain and special events. The judge's ruling upholding our decision to deny the Associated Press such privileged access reinforces the truth, and it reiterates what I said from this podium last week when that suit was filed. Asking the President of the United States questions in limited spaces such as the Oval Office and Air Force One is a privilege that unfortunately has only been granted to a few. It is not a legal right for all. The Trump administration has already proven to be the most transparent ever, and this president the most accessible in history. This is evidenced by President Trump's daily press conferences in the Oval Office, where he takes many questions from the journalists who have the honor and privilege of standing before the beautiful Resolute desk. The President and this entire White House are committed to ensuring the American people continue to receive this same level of historic transparency, access, and visibility. In fact, we want to double down and give even greater access to the American people. We want more outlets and new outlets to have a chance to take part in the press pool, to cover this administration's unprecedented achievements up close, front and center. As you all know, for decades, a group of D.C.-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join, fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility. Just like we added a new media seat in this briefing room, legacy media outlets who have been here for years will still participate in the pool, but new voices are going to be welcomed in as well. As part of these changes, we will continue the rotation amongst the 5 major television networks to ensure the President's remarks are heard far and wide around this world. We will add additional streaming services which reach different audiences than traditional cable and broadcast. This is the ever-changing landscape of the media in the United States today. We will continue to...
America needs a return of the free press. Welcome back to Transition Tuesday. We'll keep calling it that until the Trump administration's fully in place. Well, the Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube. Our X Spaces simulcast Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social Plus, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Press Secretary Carolina Leavitt there announced last Tuesday in that video that the White House has taken control over the makeup of the White House press pool, brushing aside the liberal White House Correspondents Association. The WHCA provided a laughable response to that, screeching that the move is an attack on a free and independent press. Consider those words in the context of what we've learned about the USAID scandal and its funding of American media outlets for the specific purpose of influencing American society. Yes, hundreds of millions of your tax dollars being given to press outlets like the Associated Press and Reuters and Politico, so you get the government message. The rot and corruption are much deeper than you realize, however. Outlets like Reuters and AP are heavily involved in how much access independent and legacy media outlets most use content like the Presidential Press Pool video live stream and breaking news content that they produce. My guest today is here to discuss the treatment his independent media company has received at the hands of these government propaganda outlets from firsthand experience. We'll also discuss tonight's biggest breaking news today, the presidential address to Congress. It's a State of the Union address. Let's go ahead and call it that, because my guest is a newsman. CEO of World YouTube, Brandon House, is my guest today. Brandon's the author of more than 16 books, a senior media chief executive officer who has led groundbreaking efforts such as launching and operating Lindell TV with Mike Lindell. His documentary films are world renowned. He's a legendary Christian and family radio broadcaster, and his venture in digital broadcasting here at Worldview Tube is breaking new ground in the independent media ecosystem. Brandon, welcome to the Rob Maness Show for the very first time. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on, Colonel. Appreciate it.
All right, you just got off of what, 2 hours of radio?
I just did an hour of radio. We do about 4 hours of live programming here a day. Last week they had me at the news desk for 6 hours, the boys did, without letting me stand up. 6 hours. I told them it's elder abuse. That's approaching elder abuse.
Well, if it was me, I'm 63, it would definitely be elder abuse. My goodness, that's a long time. Well, Worldview Tube it's not new, right? It's been around a while. You've been working in this business since, what, 1990-ish?
Yeah, I started my public speaking in 1990, my first book in public speaking in 1990, then started doing radio as a guest regularly in 1993 with my first book. I was doing radio before that, but I started going into big radio in 93 with Michael Reagan, Oliver North, G. Gordon Liddy, Ken Hamlin. And then from there, I sat in for Michael Reagan for the first time in 1995. The first show I ever hosted solo, not where I wasn't a guest, actually the host for 3 hours. And I did that for him many times, became his regular guest host, sat in for him when he was away at his dad's funeral for President Reagan. And then in 96, I got picked up by a network in Milwaukee to start doing guest hosting and regular programming for them. And I'm still with that same network 29 years later, and that's the 74 terrestrial stations I just got off of. And then in 2006, I started Worldview Tube. So we were asked to start a TV show for a network that just got a channel on DirecTV. They called up and said, we'd like to have an hour show once a week on Worldview. And so I started that show, and that's when I also started Worldview Tube in 2006.
Well, and now it's a network that has 24-hour live streaming on channels like Roku or I'm sorry, on
Rumble,
Social
Roku, all kinds of stuff.
All of those, and we're truly an independent digital broadcasting outlet. We're doing some unique things that have been copied by networks like InfoWars, like what we're doing right now on this show is the X Spaces simulcast with a live audience. I even saw Charlie Kirk do it on his live stream broadcast a week ago or so. So I don't know that he got the idea from us, but we're going to take credit for it here at Worldview Tube Network. Well, Brandon, you and I had a conversation about how the network is trying to make inroads and get our correspondent in D.C. A seat at the table in the White House press corps. And this discussion that you were telling me some facts about how they've treated us. I wanted to do a show on this to get it documented because it's just really, it's abominable what we're seeing with the press in the 21st century. And maybe it's bleed over from the 20th century too, but I used to believe in a free press the way it's laid out in the First Amendment, that it's basically the watchdog on government for the American people. But this White House Correspondents Association seems to be a non-government organization that's a watchdog for the left now to make sure they get their best job. Is that an accurate depiction?
I think it is. I don't want the guys to show my computer screen because I don't want to give away people's private information. But let me just read to you the letter that I received. We applied to belong to the White House Press Corps Association, the White House Correspondents Association. I went online, filled out the information, paid the money for the annual dues, and waited for my application to be approved or rejected. First of all, I got an email, kind of a snide email. I wish you guys could learn to follow instructions. We said we needed a letter from your supervisor, to which I replied in the email to the guy, that's a real problem. I'm the CEO of the company and founder. I don't have a supervisor. How would you like to proceed from here? He never responded. So I find it a little odd that they're so apparently unaware of how corporations run that a CEO would want to apply for himself and his company, and they somehow are asking me for a letter from my supervisor. So a little lame on their part. Then they didn't even respond when I asked, well, how would you like to go from here, since I am the founder and CEO? I could have one of my guys in the control room apply and then give them the letter, being that I'm their supervisor. They clearly weren't interested, I don't think, in us belonging. So they apparently just took the application as it was without responding back to me. They could have said, hey, we're going to take it as it is and we'll let you know. They didn't even respond. Then out of the blue, I get a letter back on February 18th. Let me read it to you. This is from the Executive Director, White House Correspondents Association. I regret to inform you that your application for membership has been declined. Your application was carefully reviewed by a committee of journalists looking at your listed news organization and your assignment based on all of the information you provided and any other information they found available. They did not see evidence that you are employed on the editorial staff of a newspaper, periodical, wire service, radio, TV, or other news gathering organization that reports on the White House as required by our bylaws. I will refund your dues payment, end quote. Well, here you go. I responded saying, apparently you didn't look very hard as I report on the White House every night. Yeah, every night we have a show with Neil McCabe, who was a White House reporter, who at one time belonged to the White House Correspondents Association. If they went to worldviewtube.com, they would have clearly seen what we do. We have a second player there where whenever President Trump speaks, we do our best to carry it from the White House. Okay? So they clearly didn't do their homework, or they're not being fully honest, or they're just clueless. Or they just don't want us to belong, which I think, in my opinion, that's the kicker. Now, we, of course, would like to belong to the press pool. We would be more than happy to talk to them about providing a cameraman. To be a part of the pool, we would like to see your guy get vetted by the Secret Service, fill out the information, which I've done several times. I'm sure you've done, Colonel. Logan's done it multiple times. We've been at Mar-a-Lago. If they would have gone on our website and done any research, they would have seen us conducting interviews with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So we would be happy to go through that process and say, okay, you need to have a cameraman available on X weekend, the third weekend of the month, or whatever it is, or this day or this week, and we're going to share the responsibility of covering the White House or the president. Should he go from the White House to Camp David or Mar-a-Lago or wherever, we got to have our people ready to, stream what's going on. Fine. Tell us. Yeah. Tell us when and where. We'll make a budget for it. We were never given options. We kept inquiring of options. We're willing to help pay the dues and the cost of a pool camera guy. No, I don't think they want us involved. And then we go to Reuters and we're like, hey, what's it cost to buy some streams from you guys? I think the cost was around $1,300 a month. Are you ready for the kicker on this one? $1,300 a month to pull, different things going on. Footage that we had for hours of the Potomac as they were trying to pull the plane out of the Potomac that went down. Tragedy, right? And we used some of it, and we covered some of that. Great footage. Thank you, Reuters. Happy to get it. Pool footage. And then there might be something going on in Gaza and a pool camera there. Thank you. Happy to use that. Right. But then when it came to getting stuff from the White House, Colonel, there would be something there. And what was the way it was worded, Logan? U.S. restricted? U.S. restricted. Why? If I pay you $1,300 a month, why should I be U.S. restricted from footage of President Trump speaking from the Oval Office or inside the White House? Then I find out these companies and news groups got millions, some of them millions of dollars in taxpayer money, and now you're going to tell me you're going to take my tax-paying dollars and my audience tax-paying dollars. You're going to charge me $1,300 a month to get your pool feed. Then you're going to exclude me from the pool feed coming out of the White House when you're basically now, in my opinion, a quasi-utility taking government money. This is garbage.
Exactly right. Well, Brandon, we got to take a commercial break real quick. When we come back, I want to continue that conversation and get your thoughts on the White House's control over this and whether that's going to be better or worse or stay the same. And get your thoughts, continued thoughts on the funding using government tax dollars of these media outlets that are restricting the use of the independent press and availability of that so that we can report on it accurately. We'll be right back with the CEO of Worldview 2, Brandon House, right here on the Rob Maness Show.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
USAID outflows to mainstream media outlets like Politico, or to Reuters, for example. I mentioned that there's $300 million in grants that were given by the Biden administration from various government agencies to Reuters, while Reuters won a Pulitzer for Reuters was the tip of the spear for all anti-Trump reporting, and they won a Pulitzer in the year 2024 for their series on Elon Musk and malfeasance by Elon Musk and his companies at all of his different portfolio companies, Tesla, Neuralink, SpaceX, X. At the same time that Biden from the White House had asked the U.S. government, had replied to reporters that regulators should look into Elon Musk, and that 11 different U.S. government regulatory bodies and agencies were pursuing adverse action against all four of those very agencies that Reuters won its Pulitzer for writing hit pieces about.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. Yes, we need a free press here in the United States of America. It's essential to the way our government is supposed to work. It's essential to protecting the rights of the American people. And quite honestly, it's failing. It's been failing for quite some time. That was Mr. Mike Benz on the Sean Ryan Show talking about these American media outlets getting hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer funding in order to do what? To get government messaging out that is opposed to the American people, to try to take down Donald Trump, to try to take down Elon Musk, to massage that messaging to the American people. It's a propaganda effort is what it is. It's not only wrong, it's unethical, it's illegal. And my guest today is the CEO of Worldview 2, Brandon House. We're talking about how the White House Correspondents Association has treated our independent media outlet, and whether we think we can get into the White House press corps again, because we have a D.C. correspondent. You mentioned him, Brandon, in the first segment, Neil McCabe, who's been a member of the WHCA. Has the press secretary's office set new rules now to maybe we have a better opportunity to get our presence in there?
Well, they have, and that was a great speech by the press secretary that you played at the beginning of your broadcast. The issue is when I think we were getting great communication with the White House press office, communications office, before they made the announcement of their website address where people could apply. We were having great conversation, communication. They sent us the paperwork. We filled it out. The Secret Service background for me, for Logan, any of our guys could fill out. You could fill out, which would begin the process for hard passes for us to be there at press briefings or to go there for special occasions and report from the White House front lawn or from Pebble Beach, as they call it. That's historically what they've called it. For those who don't know, they have a area set out in front of the White House. If you're looking at the White House to the right on the driveway there, and it traditionally had a bunch of small pebbles there because they were wearing the grass down. So they kind of got the nickname Pebble Beach many, many years ago. And you could set up there and do hits from there with your network. That was all going great. And then when they announced that they were opening it up to everybody that wanted to apply, which we appreciated, we understood within a few hours they had 10,000 requests. I think that has now been such an overwhelming number that now it's very difficult to get the response that we're needing from the communications office and the White House press office. So we're waiting for things to kind of flesh out, this flood of inquiries to settle down and pick it back up. So that's what's going on right now. But I will tell you, without naming the network, because I'm not at liberty to say, a major conservative network we talked with them, they talked with us, we've worked together, we've shared assets and production and worked together. And we were talking about the problem that we were having, and the individual said, we're having the same issue. This was before Caroline made the comment about the White House Press Corps Association that you read this week, or played this week. I told him about our letter that we were circulating to key people tied to President Trump. And this individual, this network said, will you send that over to me? I'd like to circulate that as well. So I kind of detailed what I told you guys here on this show. I put that in a letter, circulated it around, sent it to that network, and other networks in the conservative world were having the same problem. Then when about a week later, 10 days later, here comes Caroline with her statement. So the good news is, I don't know if any of them saw my letter. I'm not taking credit for that. I'm not saying that. But I will say we're not the only one that's been receiving this kind of issue. And I think it finally percolated up. We had a great announcement as you played it by her. We'll see what continues to unfold. But the press, the White House Press Corps Association, the powers that be, I don't think they're happy at all about the new media. And reality is, go look at the ratings of MSNBC and CNN. I think there are nights that our numbers and weeks that our numbers, I think they'd like to have some of those, or we're not far off. I mean, it's amazing. Some of the, it's not uncommon for us to have 1 million views in a 24-hour period. That's not uncommon.
Yeah, exactly right. MSNBC's been firing people left and right, too. Big names here recently. CNN's already gone through a lot of that, too. But you think they're trying to come back to a more centrist presentation, get some of the audience?
I think they are, and you see that Bezos is, I guess going to open it up and pushing for more individual liberty, economic liberty. And I find it very interesting all of a sudden that even some conservative so-called publications are wanting to call him a libertarian. Let me just warn the audience. In my book that came out, Marxianity, in 2018, I warned in 2018 in a whole chapter in that book about liberals, progressives, socialists, communitarians. Communitarianism is when you take big government and big business and merge it together. It's called communitarianism. Corporate fascism is another word. The third way is another term. I warned in that book in 2018, be very careful of the progressives who now want to call themselves libertarians. And I went and I explained why. And now you got Bezos. If you go check him out with Amazon and his Washington Post, could this guy be more involved in big government and big business merging together, and with the intelligence community and the Pentagon and the government contracts? I mean, come on. And now all of a sudden he wants to tell us he's a libertarian? I'm not buying it. But isn't it interesting now they're remaking themselves to try to, I think, to stay afloat?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they see what Elon Musk has been successful with, who I see as more of a libertarian type personality. But that's from observations over a long period of time, and what he's doing with the Trump administration as part of the government. As opposed to some Republicans we see who love their big government and want to see their big government and their big business be part of it together. It's very interesting how the mix gets made up and these personalities try to shift back and forth to try to meet what the public's expectations are. And really, it's very simple, isn't it, Brandon? We expect our government to be as small as possible. We expect it not to interfere with our individual rights. We expect the people operating the government not to be in it for themselves, but to be in it for public servants. And believe it or not, I see Musk as like that, but Bezos and that ilk, not even close. Not even close at all. As a matter of fact, this USAID scandal, and Mike Benz there talked about $300 million of tax dollars going to Reuters. And you mentioned the Reuters feed, the video feed, they restricted independent media from being able to use the White House stuff, which is crazy when you're paying them all that money, and they're getting paid by my tax dollars. I would think that is that should be a publicly available service, even to citizens, if they're getting that much tax dollars in order to enable themselves to do that.
100%. And we talked to a few attorneys. We talked to one guy who's argued before the Supreme Court several times and won a major case there. So yeah, we're not, we're trying to play nice and go through the process. But at some point, I don't know, it may require some legal action against some of these groups. I'm talking about, not talking about the White House. I'm talking about these press pool people, because I don't think, and again, I'm not an attorney, but I don't think you can take all this government money, turn around, and sell this back to other smaller media companies, and then tell them, oh, by the way, any of the feed coming out of the White House or from the president is banned. Restricted for U.S. distribution, which apparently what that means is, Colonel, people overseas, media networks overseas can carry it, but U.S. restricted. You mean the people that don't pay taxes to the U.S. government overseas can use it, but the taxpayers in the U.S. and their viewers who do pay taxes can't use it when it's coming from a company that got reportedly millions of dollars in taxpayer money? I mean, really? No.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, we got a hand up over in the audience. Let's go ahead and take that question before we go to our break. Shell, go ahead. Who's got their hand up?
We have Crazy Night, sir.
I don't really have a question, Colonel, but more of a statement. As far as free speech and the media goes and all the propaganda, it's hard to believe that they're going to spread any truth, and we can't hold our own government accountable for any truth. For instance, the Epstein list. Mm-hmm. It's going to be redacted. So for me, thinking that we can't hold our government accountable for 100% disclosure, how are we going to hold the media accountable for 100% disclosure? To me, the media is controlled opposition.
Well, the legacy media definitely is. I'll let Brandon comment on this before we go to the break, but it's my view the legacy media definitely is. You're right on point there, Crazy Night. And the rise of independent media, this is my view, is important, so important, because as we rise, we need to push out the government propaganda legacy media that's taken all these tax dollars and instill ourselves with journalistic ethics, which is we maintain our independence because we're supposed to be one of the watchdogs on the government for the people to protect their rights. Brandon, go ahead.
Well, this goes back to 1933. John Dewey, the father of progressive education, went over and studied the Karl Marx way of education, the former Soviet Union, came back to America and started implementing that here. John Dewey. He helped start the American Civil Liberties Union with avowed and admitted communist Roger Baldwin. John Dewey brought a group of Marxists to America from Germany that actually had an institute known as the Marxist Institute. We call them the Frankfurt School, Frankfurt, Germany. They came here about 1933 with the help of John Dewey, and were dropped down at Brandeis, Berkeley, Princeton, other places. I did my first seminar in the Frankfurt School at one of my conferences in November of 1997. I had that presented. November of 97, trying to explain to the American people cultural Marxism. And these guys came here and said, we're going to have a long march through the institutions, and we're going to go after two particular institutions: education and media. Education and media. Okay? And guess who helped bring these German intellectuals, these Marxists, to America with John Dewey? A young man in his early 20s by the name of Edward R. Murrow. And Edward R. Murrow, of course, rose to being on CBS radio, then television. And when someone tried to point all this out by the name of U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy from Wisconsin, Murrow had risen in broadcasting. And he used his position in broadcasting to destroy the truth teller, Joseph McCarthy. So, what did they go after? Wow. Education and media. And we're still to this day fighting to take over and have an even playing field in the media. They don't want to give up because they've used the media to carry out their cultural Marxist revolution by doing what? Saying the source of all suffering and oppression is what? Christianity and capitalism. Yep. Christianity and the free market system. That's what they use the media to do and say. And that's why you can't have flourishing independent media if they can help it, because the whole revolution in America has been acquired through education and media. That's why one reason we went into the media field. That's one reason why my second and third books were on education, because I knew that the cultural Marxists were targeting those two institutions. So we said, guess what? We're going to go into those arenas then and counter them.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to our next segment to continue this discussion about these government-bought and paid-for media outlets. The critical theories that came out of the Frankfurt School, the Institute of Marxism that Brandon just described, are the same things that have been used to infect the Department of Defense and the United States Armed Forces, our big corporations, our small businesses, even our universities. And the fight to eradicate that stuff has to continue, and the independent media rise is a huge part of that fight. As a matter of fact, I would say we're the tip of the spear and continue to be critically important to the success of eradicating that in the Trump administration. We'll be right back with the CEO of Worldview Tube, Brandon House, here on the Rob Maness Show.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
USAID has gotten a lot of attention in the last couple of days with some of these bizarre things that we've been, taxpayers have been funding. Mm-hmm. Now it looks like there are a couple media outlets that have been dragged into this conversation as far as USAID funding as well. Does the president have any comment on that?
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than $8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOJ team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that We are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube, and we're talking about the need for America to have a free press once again, as it is supposed to be the watchdog on government, the protector of individual rights, especially the right to think and speak freely, both in the press and by the people. Even those that are in the government should be able to think and speak freely. We have lost that. My guest today is the CEO of Worldview Tube, Brandon House, and we've been talking about how our independent media outlet's been treated by the White House Correspondents Association, by Reuters, that's taken hundreds of millions of dollars of tax dollars and wanting to restrict the use of their feeds that we have paid a subscription for, and those kind of things. And Brandon, I wanted to show that clip because there was some question of Doge before Levitt made that announcement and made it official about Politico, about, well, you know, Politico's not really being paid by the government, et cetera. But when they stopped the funding stream, they had to put a message out to their employees saying, hey, we've had a technical issue. We haven't paid you. They couldn't meet their payroll. That makes them probably 100% government media propaganda outlet, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And again, we haven't gotten any of that money, nor do I want it. Because again, if you take the money, there has to be strings attached, right? And so I say to everybody, tell everybody you know about Worldview Tube. Because we are an independent company, an organization. We don't take government money. Look, I've been screaming for a couple years now. National Public Radio, National Public Television. Go look it up. There are many reports they've gotten up to $500 million, $500 million, $500 million a year. National Public Radio, National Public Television. This has got to stop. We're being taxed for our money to go to people in the U.S. to push an agenda and ideology and a worldview completely contrary to the founding of our constitutional republic, which, by the way, that is how you collapse a country. You get the people of the country to destroy their own foundation, okay? And this is what Khrushchev actually told the then Secretary of Agriculture under Kennedy, Benson. He said, your kids will fall over into our hands like overripe fruit. Khrushchev said that to him. We're going to so indoctrinate your kids and grandkids that they will fall over into our hands like overripe fruit. Well, how do you do that? You have not only the enemies of America, China and others, funding opposition in the country, communist CCP fronts, but then you have your own government funding those that push the same narrative that America is evil, the source of all suffering and oppression is Christianity, the free market system, white European males, the whole system has been constructed by them to enslave people, marriage is a form of enslavement. Everything is about the source of all suffering and oppression is Christianity, the free market system. And you put that out there. Even the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem, it's all racism. And the founding fathers, don't you know, were white supremacists. Even the Pentagon had put that out there. That's in one of my documentaries from a few years ago. So you fund these groups until you convince enough Americans to tear down their own government. This is clear Marxism 101. It's dialectical materialism. Okay, that's a big name, a big word, dialectical materialism. But it's the idea that you so create conflict, and all change comes from the conflict, and that you finally get the people to destroy their own foundation because they have what is called a cognitive discourse, right? They cannot square their feelings with being an American. They have conflict. Oh, I'm an American. We're inherently evil and racist and white supremacist. So what do? You get rid of the conflict that they're feeling by destroying the very fabric of their country, and thereby our enemies got our own people to have a revolution. And it's not just the communists doing this. The Muslim Brotherhood Memorandum said, we will get Americans to destroy their own country by their own hands and tear down their own miserable house. Anybody can go look up the Muslim Brotherhood Memorandum and see they said that. So that's the red-green axis. The red being the Marxist, the green being the Islamist. Oh, and what do you know? Even some companies, I don't know, maybe go look up some so-called conservative networks, see if they've had any big Muslims funding their networks. And then you wonder why certain so-called conservative networks never say anything hardly about the real worldview of Islam.
And that's why we need Worldview Tube and networks like it to sort through these things, because the attacks are seemingly coming from all directions. The infection is real. We have an infection. The antidote or the vaccination, whatever you want to call it, the medicine that we have available right now is independent media, the Trump administration coming back into power if they can drive the train into it, or the stake into the heart of this infection and help the people kill it. Because even, granted, I read something from a lieutenant colonel that's a senior, mid-level to senior officer in the United States Army just yesterday, talking about how terrible a person Donald Trump was because he's getting rid of transgenders in the military, which are physically and mentally not qualified to be worldwide deployable. And that's a term that military members will know what I'm using, because I was a commander and my job was to have as many worldwide deployable individuals in my unit's mission as possible so we could go fight for America when called upon. And transgenders are inherently not worldwide qualified, but lieutenant colonels that are command selected, that means they've passed through all the rings and everything and been made decisions on that they're going to command troops in the United States Army, in this case, are absolutely opposed to it, and talking in ways about the commander-in-chief that just actually made my face turn red the first time I read it. That's the kind of stuff that we have to fight against. Well, Brandon, I know I got to let you go. I know we're covering the speech tonight. What are you looking for to come from the president tonight? And how will we independently report on it?
I'm hoping he will tell the American people things that you and I may already know, things this audience may already know, but tell them the things that the average boomer maybe doesn't know because they're still watching and listening to corporate media, NBC, CBS, ABC, NPR, CNN, MSNBC, people like that. Tell them the things that are going on, because some of them, while we know it, because you're on Worldview Tube, you watch Worldview Tube, I watch Worldview Tube, our audience is watching, and maybe they pick it up from some other conservative networks. A lot of the boomers out here still don't know the truth. He needs to go ahead and use this opportunity to go through without any filter from the corporate media and use those public airwaves to tell the American people what's really going on with government waste, corruption, fraud. I would like to see him say, hey, we'd like to know how this individual with a government salary of $200,000 has a net worth of $30 million, okay, while they worked for the government for 25, 30 years. They went in with basically this net worth, came out with that. How did that happen? I'd like to have him tell us about the NGOs and some of the federal judges and some of the other elected officials that are tied to these NGOs that have gotten millions and maybe billions of dollars. The American people need to understand that Washington, D.C., as Donald Trump now knows, is not just a swamp. It is a cabal of corruption equal to worse than the mafia in many ways. Because you either pay your money to the government or they will break your kneecaps and throw you in jail. This is money laundering and the shakedown of the American people, and it needs to end. We need to get rid of the federal income tax. We need to go to tariffs or national sales tax, but we need to set the American people free, and people should not be trying to struggle to buy groceries, their car insurance, their health insurance, their homeowners insurance, which, by the way, homeowners insurance is, for most of us, spiked 40% in the last year or so. No American should be struggling. This should be the land of milk and honey. And the common cause is the federal government and taxation and corruption.
They're absolutely right. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. And we will continue to advocate for getting the audience to grow on this network, and keep up the good fight, sir.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you.
All right. After this break, we'll go to the audience to get their thoughts on the speech tonight. President Trump's State of the Union after only about 45 days. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com.
Matt Bennett, former Clinton White House Deputy Special Assistant and the co-founder of Third Way. So the Democrats are trying to figure a way to respond to the president's address to a joint meeting of Congress. They might be well served to consider the results of a new Harvard-Harris poll conducted by Democratic pollster Mark Penn, which found 52% of people approve of Donald Trump, 58% think he's doing a better job than Biden, 81% approve of his deportation of illegal immigrants who've committed crimes, 76% approve of DOJ eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, and 68% approve of his declaring there only to be two genders, male and female. So given and the Democratic approval rating, according to this poll, is 36% compared to 51% for Republicans. So what can Democrats effectively do to try to counter this tomorrow night? It doesn't sound like much.
Right. I think tomorrow night their tools are very limited, and I think that's going to be true for the next 2 years.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show here on Worldview Tube. It was great to have the CEO of Worldview Tube's Brandon House with us for the last 45 minutes, talking about the independent media and why networks like this one are important, folks. And you can go to worldviewtube.com and you can subscribe to the platform. There is a huge vault that if you pay a vault subscription, you get access to all of Brandon's books, his documentaries, all of the shows, libraries, including mine, in there. And I think it's like $100 a year. It's very, very inexpensive for the vast amount of material. This man's been archiving this material since 1990. And this isn't some, some out of the way outlet here. This guy has stood in for Michael Reagan. He's interviewed Michael Reagan. He's interviewed Donald Trump. He ran and created and ran Lindell TV for Mike Lindell, and kept it in the mainstream, in the digital broadcasting space, and it's still going. All the while he was operating Worldview Tube on the side, really, to be honest with you, so that when he decided to take Worldview Tube and really push up the throttles and make it an independent media digital broadcasting outlet that will compete with the likes of ABC, CBS, and NBC, he was ready to go. And I'm honored to be part of this team and to have the privilege and opportunity to help get the real message out for the American people. Well, let's go over to the audience. And what do you all think about the president's speech tonight? A little clip there ran through the numbers. 81% approve of the president's deportation operation. There wasn't a number in there in that list that John just read off that was below 51%. This man's approval ratings are through the roof. And the title of the speech I think you're going to see is the renewal of the American dream. And in just 40-something days, I think 48 or 49 days now, the administration, without their entire team being confirmed and in place and hired yet, has made phenomenal strides and is really changing the country for real, not just narrative changes. So I'm excited to hear what he's got to say tonight. Hopefully there's some information out there we don't know that's going to be revealed. Okay, Shell, let's go ahead and take some questions from the audience or some comments.
We have crazy night again, sir.
Hey, Colonel, you moved off topic for me and into what the president's going to speak about tonight, so I'll refrain from going backwards. I'm out.
Okay, no problem. All right, who's next?
We have domestic terrorist grandma, sir.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Okay. So about tonight, it's not surprising that the Democrats are going to act like petulant little whiny babies, wanting to disrupt the president's message and his speech. They all act the same. When they don't get their way, they act like little babies. And then you see the NPC videos coming out, I'm all saying the same thing. They never have an original thought in their heads. That's why they can't meme. But but tonight is going to be probably historical in the sense of, they always preach to us for the last 4 years of honoring the office of the president and being respectful to Biden, but now they're going to turn into little whiny babies. And people need to pay attention to this because we're only 2 years away from the midterms. And so we don't have a lot of time to get done what we need to get done. So we really need to pay attention who's doing what now so we can plan in the future and get the rhino hunters out there, and especially the rhinos. But just pay attention and watch the crowd tonight because it's probably going to be off the hook. I hope not, but I can't believe that they would allow eggs in there. It's just too much distraction, but stay on point. And that's all I had to say. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. I read that, too, that some of these Democrats are planning on throwing eggs at the president in the State of the Union speech. Okay, let's not even call it the State of the Union. It's a joint session of Congress. It's the president of the United States. And I'm not talking about the president that's a guy named Donald Trump. I'm talking about the presidency, the office. But I'll be honest with you, I won't be surprised by anything. I was shocked when Nancy Pelosi tore his paper speech up copy when he gave his State of the Union in his last administration. That was a completely outside of the norms, extremely disrespectful to not the man, the office. It's respect for the office that we've been taught all of our lives. Those of us that are probably watching this show, most of us are in similar age groups, and those are the norms that people are supposed to follow, whether they disagree vehemently politically or not, especially those in office that are wielding power. Because even if you're in the minority, as you can see, you're still wielding power. I'm going to use the term Hillary Clinton used. It's deplorable, you bunch of stinking deplorable Democrats. Why don't you just knock it off and be respectful? You don't have to be nice, but you do need to be respectful. Or maybe Speaker Johnson will get some spine and just lock you out of the House of Representatives so you cannot come back in. How would you like that? How would your constituents like that? Maybe that's something that needs to happen in order to get their constituents' attention. All right, let's take the next question.
We have our co-host, Rob, sir.
Hey, Colonel. This kind of goes to both of the topics you were talking about. When you just said that every single poll is astronomical as far as favorability goes, the mainstream media has been on a campaign to say that his approval rating is low. This is where we can see the lies. I mean, am I wrong in this? This is why mainstream media is the enemy of the people, because we know that his approval rating is through the roof. Because I know I'm happy with 99% of the stuff that he's doing, but MSNBC, CNN, ABC, they're all saying that his approval ratings are tanking.
Well, I have to say, though, if you saw the beginning of the show yesterday, I played a clip from Harry Enton of CNN, the pollster from CNN now, where he was actually presenting an honest presentation about Republican numbers, approval numbers of the president. But those numbers are so large that they're undeniable. And it's undeniable in the independent media outlets that we're going to talk about the real numbers. And that's why I wanted to show that last little clip there, because those really are the real numbers from reputable outlets about his approval rating. And that one wasn't just Republicans. That was across the board. Nothing is below 51%. So that means there's a sizable number of Democrats, Rob, that are supporting this man's efforts. I mean, think about the number of for the deportation operations. 81% of those polled approve strongly of the illegal alien deportation operations that President Trump is undertaking. And I think tonight you're going to hear him ask Congress to quickly pass the funding, to increase the funding for border security that will further enable those operations. I'm hearing in the background that Tom Homan's having to ask for a lot more money, and he's struggling because he needs more funding to get more people on the ground. Because they're not volunteers, folks. When you're asking local sheriff's departments, state police, other federal agencies to do things for you, you got to provide them the funding in order to act. And I think that's one of the things that you're going to hear from the president tonight is a request to Congress about that. But your point about the media, again, Rob, is very, very well taken. One of the things that I want to make sure that I do here in my show is not be unbalanced. I want to be balanced in this. And if there's something I disagree with the Trump administration on, I make you this promise that I'm going to call it out and I'm going to talk about it, and we're going to publicize it and maybe get a positive change made if we're able to do that. Or maybe I'm just wrong for disagreeing with them, but we'll report on it. We'll talk it out and get that in the documentation stream and in the library, in the vault, so to speak, so that people can go back and refer to it because that's what the media should be doing. We should be doing that. Look, I'm not going to ever agree 100% with any politician, including President Trump. So far, though, I really like what I'm seeing. I think he's going to talk tonight about the Ukrainian president caving in, which he should have never been in that position to have to cave in the first place. This Trump peace plan is the only game in town to stop killing Ukrainians and Russians and others that are in that part of the world in that war that is totally unnecessary in the first place and could have been stopped diplomatically. All right, go ahead, Shel. We'll let you have the last word.
Thank you, sir. Now, considering all of the rumors of disruption that are coming from the left, sir, do you think the Capitol Police will engage and keep some of this down, or act appropriately, sir, and possibly remove the disruptors?
Well, by January 6, 2021 standards, you and the Capitol Police and the FBI should be documenting and recording all this video reporting that you're seeing so that you can round up the seditious conspirators and the insurrectionists, because if they throw an egg at the president of the United States, that's doing a couple of things. Obstructing an official proceeding, number one, and using physical violence with a weapon, the egg, just as much of a weapon as carrying a flag on January 6, 2021. So I would expect to see a large group of people, because there will be probably 700 or 800 people in that room. So a third of them or more, or close to half, be arrested as they're getting ready to leave that building if this kind of disruption occurs, because we have to apply the same standards, right, folks? And on that note, I'm Rob Maness of Worldview Tube. I look forward to the coverage tonight of the speech. Hope you guys too. Tomorrow is Whistleblower Wednesday. We're talking about the Judge Advocate General lawyers in the military being fired and the whistleblower information that's coming out about that with Commander Rob Green, the author of the Declaration of Military Accountability, and his book, Defending the Constitution Behind Enemy Lines, and retired U.S. Navy Captain JAG Dan McCarthy. I'll see you then.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years